For the past 85 years, every story that has involved a superhero has also involved a supervillain, an arch nemesis to every hate crusader. Often in these stories, a superhero's point would be to save the day and instill rules based on what society deemed was right. And over the course of years, supervillains have become a very important storytelling device as well. See, their roles are to make either the superhero or oftentimes the audience question if those rules created by society are truly fair and right. Every superhero has a nemesis. Every Superman has a Lex Luthor. Every Red Skull has a Captain America. And if you are truly great, then you have a wide plethora of well-written and well-developed villains, often referred to as a rogues gallery. So why is it that lately Hollywood has been putting out more and more villain-only stories? Stories that do not include the superhero counterpart to the villain. There have been a lot of stories that have been terrible. There's also been a number of stories that have been very well received. Marvel has released not just the Venom trilogy and the soon-to-be released Kraven movie, they also have released Loki and Agatha all along. There's a number of villain-based stories that Marvel has been releasing, and most of them have not been well received or well reviewed. On the other side, you have DC that released the Joker that had a great reception. Currently, HBO is releasing the Penguin spin-off series to Matt Reeves' Batman, and many are considering it a perfect TV show. James Gunn recently announced a Bane and Deathstroke movie. The animated Harley Quinn TV show is on its 5th season and already has a spin-off. What makes the separation? Well, I don't think it's as simple as DC is good and Marvel is bad. I think when you look at the individual projects, there is a clear difference as to what makes a project about a villain good versus what makes a project about a villain bad. And it's that the main character is not good, they are bad. The Marvel problem, and this is in the comic books as well, is that they cannot let villains be villains. There's a moral obligation that has been ingrained into its DNA from the days of Stan Lee. They take villains, remove them from their hero counterpart stories, and just make them heroes. And that then makes them less fleshed out, less believable hero stories. Obviously, there are outliers, but what I've noticed on the DC side is that they've allowed characters like Colin Farrell's Penguin to just be a bad guy. The original Joker movie was a haunting story of a man with psychosis slowly going insane. There was no redeeming factor. There was no moment that no matter what his sins may be, he truly has a heart of gold. That is not the story that most audience members want to see. There are exceptions to the rule. James Gunn's Suicide Squad was very clearly an anti-hero story, including the spin-off Peacemaker, where they made us feel for those characters. But at the end of the day, it seems to be that audiences like it a lot more when you allow villains to be villains. I'm not saying that a good villain cannot be relatable and not have redeeming factors. A villain is great when it questions society's rules. In the Black Panther Marvel movie, everyone loved Killmonger not just because he was a truly psychotic maniac, but because he made audience members question whether or not the Black Panther was in the right for his decisions. And going back to the comic books, there is no greater relatable villain than Magneto, and anyone who has read the comics or seen the movies can justify Magneto's actions to a point. But I think that there is a fine line that audience members require when it comes to villains. Outside of the superhero genre, you had The Walking Dead. They introduced one of the best villains of all time, Jeffrey Dean Morton's Negan, introduced in a way that was savage and truly evil. But the problem that the show eventually ran into in the comics before that, they needed to make Negan justified. They gave him a backstory of a dying wife with cancer. They made him apologize for his actions. And they made the audience lose an antagonist that truly pushed forward the story. On the other side, you have The Boys, which is having massive success on its 4th going into its 5th season. There were no redeeming factors or qualities for Homelander. If anything, the show has been pushing farther and farther into that evil end, and audiences want more. Now, why is that? When you look at some of the greatest TV shows of all time, like The Sopranos, Breaking Bad, Dexter before season 5, every single one of these shows involve bad people doing bad things. General audiences love to watch a villain. It's not because we ourselves are villains. It's not because we want to watch bad things happen to people. It's not because we have lost all of our moral values. I think that it's a lot more sympathetic than that. People need to watch villains because the world is full of real life villains. Those evil people in real life are not stopped by a superhero. So watching a story where a villain is to truly be a villain helps us digest the real world, where the villains have far more nefarious intentions.